Time now for the Educated Retirement Show with your host, Jay Kaplan. Jay discusses reverse mortgages and can answer your questions at 951-922-3532. Call lines are open at 951-922-3532. And now here's Jay.
Now here's Jay. Remember, 951-922-3532, as Sean would probably say it. We have our great guest with us right now. And let me go ahead and repeat what I said a little about an hour ago, and that's Brenner is an intellectual properties professional whose passion is helping inventors, startups, and businesses of all sizes, shapes, and forms to use licensing to turn their intellectual property into income-producing products. And that really got my brain to start thinking. Anyway, services and technology. His decades of experience run the gamut from medical devices to food technology to consumer products. He's licensed some of the biggest Hollywood entertainment blockbusters, including the Batman movies 1 and 2, which we talked about a little while ago, and the #1 kids action TV show, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But Rand speaks about licensing and is a featured speaker at investment conferences, trade shows, colleges, startup events, and publisher of a whole bunch of different things. And from that, I think what we'll do is go right into, let's let Rand introduce himself first.
Jay, thank you so much for that introduction. I don't know if there's much left, but it's great to be back with you. And as you had said, my business is licensing. I've been doing it for a long time, and some of those movies that you had mentioned, I think, go back quite a ways, but they've proven to be popular franchises. And so I spent over a decade on the entertainment side and really got into the licensing business there. And it was, interestingly enough, at a time when licensing was really not recognized by the studios as a primary income source. So that led to a lot of interesting stories, as there always are in Hollywood. But from there, I set up my own business, and that looking at working with individuals, inventors, and companies and licensing out their IP. One thing I quickly discovered is that it's really a world that is not well understood by many folks, most folks, especially the world of intellectual property and licensing and what it is. I think that what I've learned is the biggest misconception out there is the assumption that licensing is a legal thing. And legal is part of it, but what licensing is, it's a process of taking intellectual property, packaging it up, marketing it, and finding partners who want to work with you and use your intellectual property. And a license is the end result of that. It's like the rental agreement for property. I mean, it's very similar in that way.
Well, that's good.
And that's the part that most people just don't understand is how do you do this? What's involved in that? And so what I do is I work with clients a lot on managing their IP for them and licensing it and finding partners, but also too a lot of consulting and coaching to IP owners about various stages of what their IP is and what they're doing in licensing, and helping them stay out of hot water and figure out, how to really put their IP to work. And I think what I've been seeing is more and more I'm getting more inquiries from people who are interested in seeing about doing something with their intellectual property. And so as part of that, I have 2 websites there, and one of them is an educational site, Licensing for Profits. And I started that because I found a lot of people were asking a lot of questions and wanted to get a lot of information, and education was sorely needed about it. So, and I think, Jay, you and I were talking, part of what I do is I offer live events and coaching clinics and workshops and things like that. And I have one coming up here in August in about 2 weeks, and it's on the marketing side of it. It's called The Marketing Secrets of the Licensing Pros. And that's going to be a free workshop that's going to focus on, what does it take to go out with your intellectual property? What do you have to do to be able to present it, find licensees, present it, and get the attract licensing partners. So that's what it's going to be.
And I signed up
on.
for it. Yeah.
You did. I'm looking forward to having you there. And so I try to put those workshops on about once a month, focusing on some specific aspect of the licensing process. I find that folks from all types of businesses and industries sign up. I'm always surprised, from startups all the way up into large corporations, educational institutions. So there is a desire to learn more about this, and you know, part of that is because it isn't taught. I mean, this is something that people are not educated in. But when you look at the world today, it's all about intellectual property. We're surrounded by it. It's everything that you do, you eat, sit in, work, talk on, especially on the internet, drive in. It's all intellectual property, and there's more and more of it every day that's coming to the market because of what's going on globally, and a lot of things are changing around that, and so it's opening up a lot of opportunity. And I think for anybody listening or watching, you know, if you got a business, even if you don't have a business, you don't necessarily have to have a business of intellectual property. Many people have it, just don't realize it. So one of my goals is to help them. If they haven't figured it out, I can help you figure it out and see what they can do with it.
I don't think that many people have it figured out. I mean, not that I'm the smartest guy around. I may be all the way on the other end, but you know, when I think of, you know, somebody getting a Power Ranger mini burger at the you know, McDonald's, whoever has it, you know, I just think, oh, this was all done by big corporations and attorneys and this and that, and has nothing to do with regular people, and that's not true. And you know, we talked earlier about how people who read live longer, and that's because I think because the Alzheimer's, you know, you don't slow your brain down. But thinking about what you do and all the possibilities, boy, that really gets brains rolling and turning.
It does.
So,
And I mean, you raise a good point. I mean, yes, you know, the big, you know, movies and entertainment are a good example of the most visible forms of licensing, because obviously it impacts everybody with theme parks and mini burgers and everything else that goes on. But behind the scenes, licensing is really a big part of these big global strategies, these business strategies, these very large corporations around the world use. They're constantly using their intellectual property. They're moving it around. They're doing deals with each other. I mean, one of the things that occurs in the world today, many people I don't even think realize, but there's so much intellectual property, and especially with technology and the internet and AI and everything coming out, that literally today, every company, let's use, you know, the smartphone or the cell phone industry, for example. You got Apple, Nokia, Google, you name it. But I don't think people realize that individually, they would not be able to produce their phones, because they don't own all of the technology in those phones, those patents. Those
right.
Inside are all the components and the screens and everything else, and all the improvements and the video and the audio. Other people have invented that, created and patented it. And a patent is one form of intellectual property that allows you to be able to control it and do something with it. Well, what's happening in the world now more is there's a pooling of these patents, and the reason those are created is because everybody was starting to step on everybody's toes. So they pool all the patents and then divvy up the royalties based on who owns what, and you're seeing that more and more. And what's occurring now in the world is every time these new technologies evolve, like the latest one that's being assembled right now, and they've started it, is around smart cars. Is because smart cars are basically computers, the self-driving mechanisms, the guidance systems, all of that. Well, the car manufacturers don't own that technology. It was all developed by, and by the way, by a lot of innovative people, not necessarily large corporations. A lot of them were individuals, engineers, whoever the case is, but they got the patents to it. They perfected the technology. And what's happened now is a lot of that technology is needed inside smart cars, and, you know, automobile manufacturers, maybe with the exception of Tesla and some of the electric car companies, their R&D never focused on high tech, on automation systems and semiconductors and complex systems like that in the screen. So what's happening now is a lot of the technology inside those cars is licensed. So GM and Ford and the others are now going to these patent pools with all this technology to get the type of IP rights that they need to be able to build their cars. And the same thing exists for computers, and on and on and on. So this is, I share that with people to understand that it's not intellectual property isn't something that is limited to the gigantic corporate world. I mean, a lot of this comes from, folks such as you and I who are sitting there and come up with a, good concept and tinker around in our garage, and it seems to work, and go out and test it in the market, and then eventually maybe get a patent on it and put a few products or software, whatever it is, together, go out and sell it, and suddenly discover that, yes, there's a market for it. And then what they're able to do is they have a piece of what's called intellectual property. They can go out and rent it, and that's the licensing process. So
Wow.
it's used every day around the world, and you read about it every day. And in fact, I'd say just about most people around the world, if they've ever worked on a computer or had a computer or even a smartphone, they do licensing every day. Okay, you've done licensing every day. And many people look at me and say, I've never done licensing before. Well, if you've ever loaded a piece of software or gotten a new smartphone or gotten an upgrade, what's the first thing that pops up on your screen?
Yes,
exactly.
It's called
an end user license agreement. And some of them can be very long and complex, but that's basically a license agreement where, I don't know, most people don't read the whole thing, but you're agreeing to terms among those that you're not going to duplicate it and try to sell it yourself and other things. But you have been signing licensing agreements since we've been in the technology era, and more every day. But again, because they're not presented as a license agreement, because if most people, saw that, they would just kind of not really want to sign it. But that's what those things are that pop up when you go to sign up for a new service. You're agreeing to license the intellectual property and use it in a certain way.
I remember South Park a couple of years ago had a show. I want to get off subject on. They had a where people would sign up for the most horrible things you could possibly think of because you just signed up for these licensing agreements. So nobody reads them. But yes, you're absolutely right. And my mind keeps spinning around with what can I personally do with the things that I do and have done for the last 50 years, as far as ideas. And I think everybody can start thinking that way. And some of the older folks that are listening to the show, we always say you stay healthier, you live longer if you keep active. And this is one way to, to blend that in.
You raise a good point here, because there's a form of intellectual property that not too many people are familiar with, because it's what's called a non-registered form. It's known as trade secrets and know-how. Now, most people have know-how. You have know-how, especially when it comes to the reverse mortgage market, and a lot of listeners and viewers may have it. But especially if you're a professional and you've been doing something for a long time that generates results for a client, whether it gets them more money or investments, it's called knowledge workers. And you've heard the term that we're a service-based business. Well, a big chunk of that is what's called knowledge workers. And the knowledge worker is a consultant, a coach, anybody that's using their brain to figure out something to solve client problems. Okay. And what happens is a lot of those solutions are your intellectual property, because you've taken your experience and your education or whatever it was, mainly experience, and you've over the years perfected a system or a technique or a process that helps people in a certain way. And in many cases, people assume that if I'm a consultant and I've been operating my business for 35 years, I just have to retire and shut the doors. What they may not realize is they may have created a system that they've been using for their clients that, if it's repeatable, meaning that clients can go through their consulting services and get that profitability increase or whatever it is, there's a possibility that they could be taking that know-how and what's called packaging it up and teaching it to others to use. And if in fact they can do that and others can get the same results, what you've got is a licensable piece of know-how intellectual property. So instead of closing the doors, what you could be looking at is a retirement annuity.
Well,
where
great ideas.
Yeah,
You want
you
to
could be
license
licensed,
that,
you
by
know.
the way?
Well, it's well, I mean, license the process of licensing know-how
I know.
certainly, but it's an I see it as a place where many people overlook the fact that they are doing something. They just don't understand it from the context of intellectual property, and it's I've seen that more. I mean, I've been receiving more inquiries from those kind of service professionals, such as coaches and consultants, people with training programs and seminars, because what's happening is their customers are asking them for rights to be able to use their training courses or their know-how.
Now, time is going
So,
by faster than
yeah,
either one of us wanted to. So why don't we just take a minute here and let you give out all of your contact information. Also, I
sure.
believe you have, what, 2 books out published?
One right now is Hidden Wealth, The Money-Making Power of Licensing, which is available on Amazon.
Uh-huh.
It's a short book. It's you know, I wrote it so that it's an easy, quick read for just about anybody, and it's a
Even
nice
me?
primer.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
nice primer on licensing. So I encourage anybody who's interested to you know, certainly get the book. I think that they'll find that it's a good, quick way to get informed and educated about licensing. And then I also publish 2 newsletters, blogs, one at licensingforprofits.com. That's licensing with the number 4 profits.com. And you can go over there and you can find lots of great articles, free reports, videos, audios, workshops as you've signed up for. There's just a wealth of information there for anybody that's looking to get educated about intellectual property and licensing. And then for those who are interested in some of the more advanced ways you can use licensing, then I would suggest visiting my website, licensingconsultinggroup.com. Okay, licensingconsultinggroup.com. And that's the consulting side of my business, where the articles that I publish over there are focused on the more advanced strategic use of licensing by different types of businesses in terms of growing or structuring deals, whether it's pharmaceuticals or integrating IP into other types of products and technology, the much more strategic use of it, where licensing
So
for profits.
that'll help a
is the nuts and
novice,
bolts.
a novice like myself or whatever, kind of categorize what works for what and see what I can fit into.
Sure,
and
and
not.
that's where licensing for profits, I think, is something that it's been growing and people really like it. Is this how-to? What is the step-by-step that I need to take? And so that's why I've spent a lot of time producing and publishing information, because it's something that's sorely needed, and I enjoy doing it because I like to help. You know, the world is so loaded with this that the more people that I can help, the more it's going to benefit everybody, really, in the world of licensing. I think you know, it's growing. It has its challenges, but for anybody who, as I said, in your audience, I think it's something that's well worth, as you said, reading about to keep yourself up to date. I think it would give you some good ideas as well in terms of what you can do.
Very, very good. I mean, that's just. So let me go over a couple of the things that you say are coming up in your Guerrilla workshop, and we can look at those as questions or just statements or anything you like. You've got how to use the sweetheart deal to get your first intellectual property licensing partner. I guess for that, they need to go to the workshop, right?
Well, that's actually part of a free workshop. Yes, they do. And I have a series of workshops on Eventbrite. You can find me on Eventbrite under my name, Rand Brenner, or Licensing for Profits. And there, what I've done is I've taken some of the basic workshops, this being one of them, this Guerrilla Licensing, which is about how do you promote. It's kind of an introduction to the more advanced workshop I'll be giving live later on. But people can sign up for these workshops, and they're, you know, half-hour, 40-minute video replays of these workshops that they can have an opportunity. So you can find the promotion one, as you'd mentioned, on Guerrilla Licensing. There's one on Licensing 101. This is the beginner's guide to making money with intellectual property. That's a very popular one, and that will give you a real quick introduction. There's one that I think benefits everybody. It's called the licensing mindset, how to think like an IP entrepreneur. And this goes back to your point, Jay. A lot of this has to do with the way people think about what it is they're doing or what they're working on. And understanding that you need an understanding of intellectual property, but more specifically about what intangible rights, which is what intellectual property is, intangible, but what you can do with them and how you think about it. So in that workshop, I share stories about different entrepreneurs, very successful, some of the biggest companies from Dale Carnegie to Fields Cookies to Google and others, to give people an idea of how all of these, what are now big established businesses, all got their start with intellectual property and licensing. And many people don't realize it. And so I share that so that people can start to understand what you can do with it. And it's really not limited by what, you think it's just a product or just a service. Where can you go with it? So that is a real good way of understanding what you can do. And then I have a number of others there as well. The money blockers. A lot of people don't do anything with their intellectual property because they fear somebody will take it, or they don't know how to do it, or any number of things. And I go through those fears and show people or
that's so
educate
important.
people how to get past, how to put those aside and understand that you can go into the market, that a lot of these fears, while yes, there are some, can somebody take your IP and use it without? Sure, that can happen. But there are things in most cases I'd say the majority of the time, if you understand how to do it correctly and you go into the market with your, new product or your widget or your gadget or whatever, you can find partners and you can avoid a lot of those problems, and you don't have to be fearful about going into the market with that.
Right, because I
again,
noticed you've got, how a licensing partner could magnify your attraction factor for intellectual property, and
that's another part of it, because it's like anything else, and it's a good one that you bring up there, because I talk about that, and I'll be talking about that in the upcoming workshop. But what you have to understand is that if you're an inventor and you successfully develop, a product and you license it to a company, you have a licensee on board, and that creates a lot of value for you and your invention. And if you can license it to more than one company, by having one licensee on board, you now open the door to bring more on. I mean, in that course, I talk about the toughest license to get, or partner to get, is your first one. Nobody wants to be. Nobody wants to. And I share that from my days in the entertainment business, and I used to have TV shows and movies that would come out that the public really didn't know about, and trying to convince companies to come on board was, you really had to beg and plead, because they didn't know if this was going to be successful or not. So you had to find the ones willing to take the risk. Of course, you'd mentioned the sweetheart deal, and I talk about this. Those that come on early and are willing to take the risk, the incentive is maybe no money down, maybe low royalty, whatever. They're your partner, and they help build your licensing program. So these are all the types of things that I provide.
Yeah. And social media, of course, is an important part of that.
Sure. I mean, today you can promote, and the nice thing about licensing, hey, you can do it all around the world and never leave your house.
Right.
With Zoom today, and I mean, for the most part, you don't have to travel to do licensing anymore. It's really about communicating the information and doing things with your intellectual property. Ideally, you get it in the market and you start selling it. That's the best place to be, making some money with it. Then it makes it a lot easier to find companies that are interested, because I can tell you, everybody is hungry for new innovation. Every company out there wants something new, but it has to be at a certain point where they can use it. So these are some of the points I'm going to be covering in my marketing secrets of the licensing pros workshop, because one of the things that is really need to understand is what stage does my intellectual property have to be to really be able to go out and be successful with this, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about. But
yeah, and how to make a big impression for a small budget. Social media, I think, has a lot to do with that, and just wise having the wisdom of knowing what path to take, and that's where contacting you is important.
It's hopefully you contact me before you get in trouble. So,
or you lose an opportunity that you
I think for a lot of folks is understanding how you need to go about, because it's just, listen, as challenging it is to go out to try to find a licensing partner, I can tell you, sitting on the other side of the desk, it's just as challenging for companies who are facing, a lot of inventors or other small businesses that are coming in saying, would you like to license their IP? Because they have to sift through all this to try to figure out, what's going to make sense for them. And one of the biggest challenges is the communication thing is, I find that, for example, inventors tend to be very heavy with their information up front, and they just send way too much at the beginning and nobody can figure it out. And so part of this is understanding the dynamics of communication with the type of companies. And as I explain, sometimes to clients, I say, look, if we're going after large companies, you have to understand that the people we're going to don't have time to sift through, tons of documents. We have to respect their time and give them just enough information that they can make a decision if they want something more. But if you send them too much, I mean, you've been there. Maybe you get this long-winded email that just goes on and on and on. And at some point you just turn it off and you say, you know what, this is too much. I haven't got time for it. And the same thing exists out there today. So part of what I do in working with clients and offering these workshops is to educate IP owners on, what kind of information do you need to use? How should you pace it? What should you send? What shouldn't you send? Things like that, because all of it impacts, your success rate with getting through, because the biggest part of licensing is the, business development part, the knocking on doors and seeing if you can make something happen. So
now we are at the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that out of courtesy in case you want to take off. I'm ready to have you on for the next 3 hours, but
that's
I
fine.
just thought I'd let you know.
Okay.
And if
I
go ahead.
I was going to say, no, this has been great. And, there's plenty of stories we can go on with, but I think for the folks listening or viewing, I think the important thing is if they are interested, please, I encourage them, come out, visit my website, sign up for the newsletters, lots of great stuff. And plus, if they like, they can schedule a quick 15-minute call with me. Happy to have a discussion with them. They can go to my website, click the button, schedule time with me. We'll set up a call. I can give them some quick advice on what they're doing with their IP and see if they've got some opportunities there that they can take advantage of.
Like I said before you came on, and I say again, I have a lot of great guests on the show, but you're one of the most mind-boggling. You get it cranked up as much as anybody, if not more than anybody else, and I love it. And I hope so many other people out there also love it. And before you do go, give your contact information, real quick, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah. I think the easiest for people is just to send a quick note to me, Rand, R-A-N-D, at licensing, the number 4, and the word profits, licensingforprofits.com, real simple, licensingforprofits.com. You can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to respond to you. Or you can visit my website at licensing, the number 4, profits, plural.com, licensingforprofits.com, or licensingconsultinggroup.com. Any of those formats, you'll be able to get in touch with me. I'm not a hard guy to get in touch with. I want to hear from you. If you've got something, let's explore it and see where we can go.
I really appreciate you being here, and I hope, and I know that so many of the listeners also appreciate it very, very, very much. You're a great guest, and you've got great information, and mind-opening information. So let me thank you one more time, and hopefully we'll get together in person before too long.
Yeah,
I'd love
I'd
to
love
do
to
that,
do that.
but we can talk about that off the air or through
Okay.
emails, and let you get back to your Friday evening and your weekend, and have yourself a great weekend. Okay?
Thank you. You too, Jay. And thanks so much. I enjoyed it and happy to come back anytime. You
I
take care.
appreciate it so much.
Okay.
You too.
I'll see you soon. Okay.
Bye-bye. I
Bye-bye.
hope so. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was a great guest. I think a great guest. And let me apologize real quick right now for the technical difficulties and that we had the first half of the show. I think some of it's my fault. I couldn't hear anything. That's what I should say. I didn't have any way to hear anything on the show, so that may have delayed things to begin with, and then who knows what. But we do use Skype, and I erroneously said maybe it was Skype's fault, but I think I'm just used to blaming things on Skype. I use Zoom quite a bit, I was telling Sean, and yeah, last Tuesday I had a lot of trouble with Zoom too. You hear that, Sean? I had people, because I do lead a group of reverse mortgage people, maybe 20, maybe 30, Zoom conference on Tuesday mornings, and so many of the people said they couldn't get on. Some did, some didn't. So believe me, all technology has its ins and outs. All biology has its ins and outs also. So we were talking about Arnold. So let's get back to our nostalgia part of the show. So Arnold moved to, and I'm just going to repeat the paragraph I wrote. And Arnold moved to the U.S. at 21. He spoke very little English. In 1968, he trained at Gold's Gym in Venice. That's right down the street from where Larry Albright had his studio and house for a while. And that's another, she does neon. In fact, Larry lit up the mothership for Close Encounters, which I think I showed you that book earlier. Anyway, under Joe Weider's supervision, in 1970, he captured his first Mr. Olympia title in New York and would go on to win the title of a total of 7 times that title. He soon moved from bodybuilding into acting in 1970. And he got a role in the film Hercules in New York. His second role was The Long Goodbye. And boy, Robert Altman, we talked about him the other day. We talked about The Long Goodbye anyway, and how much I think Robert Altman's such a great guy. I think we talked about The Long Goodbye in relation to the writer who's, well, I'll have to watch my show last week to figure that one out. Let me show you another picture, kind of a funny picture of, that's not me, by the way. I know you think it probably is, but that's Arnold. I think he was a little bit younger than he is now. And in 1984, he made his first appearance as the character that some would say was a signature role as a cyborg assassin back in time from 2029 to 1984. Can you imagine 2029 being the way they showed it? Anyway, in James Cameron's The Terminator. And The Terminator I still think is the best of the bunch, not T2, although that's very entertaining. Arnold starred in, what do we got here? Oh yeah, this is the first one. And he is a good actor, not just a character that you like. The Rock is a good character that you like also. He's in that scene. But Arnold is very good. He starred in 59 films. He won a Golden Globe Award in 1977 for Stay Hungry. Won a Primetime Emmy in 2014 for Years of Living Dangerously. Wow. That's a television documentary about the climate change, not the movie, and was nominated for several Saturn Awards. A short list of Arnold's films: Conan the Barbarian. Director was John Milius. Co-written by Milius and Oliver Stone. The Terminator, 1984. James Cameron co-starred Linda Hamilton. Film was nominated for 7 Saturn Awards and won 3 of them. Total Recall, again written by, well, let's show the ones on top. That's okay. Kathleen?
Terminator 2.
Yeah, this is Terminator 2.
Yes, okay. Set here.
And T2. And what do we have here? Just some pictures. So, anyway. And Total Recall was director Paul Verhoeven, which I think did some great stuff and some not great stuff, but co-starred Sharon Stone. Film based on a story by my favorite science fiction writer Philip K. Dick. It had 2 Academy Award nominations and won a Special Achievement Academy Award. There we go. There was a... Sorry about that. There was a remake, which I don't think stood up to this one, but there he is. And
He was in this too. It's not part of it.
what, Batman and Robin? Yeah, there he is on the top
Mr.
there.
Freeze.
He was Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin, one of the original franchise one, not original, the Tim Burton ones. I don't know if this was. Take a look and see if that was actually directed by Tim Burton. True Lies was 1994. Director James Cameron, co-starring Jamie Lee Curtis. Film earned 1 Academy nomination for Best Effects. Now that's a movie we watched over and over and over because I thought that just was a lot of fun. I really did. And so there, Eraser, not quite as good. 1996, director Chuck Russell, co-star James Caan, James Coburn, Vanessa Williams, nominated for 1 Academy Award, and Eraser. There you go. Not to be confused with Eraserhead, which was a real standout. This says Arnold's back and better than ever. Well, I don't know. He's back anyway. Sixth Day, which is another one. Roger Spotswood, and co-starred Robert Duvall. Arnold's political views were always well known. He was chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports, Red Cross ambassador, and decided to run for office as he announced his candidacy in the 2003 for the recall election for governor in California and won. He served as governor from 2003 to 2011. And in the meantime, I want to remind you that you are listening to the Educated Retirement Radio here on your home planet, 1490 KMET AM radio. And before we, because we had some technical difficulties, we'll probably put some of the birthdays onto next week's show. But I want NASA Nellie, because she's already on her way down from outer space, and we would hate for all that taxpayer money for fuel to go for nothing. So there she is. So take it away, NASA Nellie.
Well, here's a report on Mars, on the NASA's Perseverance rover. NASA's Perseverance launched from Florida's coast on July 30th, 2020, and landed in February of this year. The rover isn't just exploring the red planet. It is a life hunting machine and will help a little bit of Mars to make it to Earth if all goes according to plan, which includes over 30 tubes of Martian rock and sediment as part of that plan. It's not very big, not including its robotic arm. It is about 10 feet long, 9 feet wide, and 7 feet tall, and weighs less than a compact car. It has a drill for sampling rocks, 23 cameras, and scientific instruments. It is gathering science data in ways that weren't possible before, and it has carried its own helicopter named Ingenuity. The difference with our previous rover, still in operation since 2012, the Curiosity, whose main task involved the habitability of ancient Mars, whereas Perseverance is hunting for evidence of ancient Martians. Ingenuity, the helicopter, has done 5 short flights so far, as high as 33 feet. During the most recent flight, it snapped pictures and then landed in a new place, embarking on a new journey of exploration. As it's worked out so well, NASA has extended its mission. And we aren't the only ones. China's Tianwen-1 rover or lander descended onto the surface of Mars late May for the first time and has been conducting science operations ever since. This makes China the second nation in the world to land a mission on Mars and establish communications from the surface. It has been photographing daily images of rocks, sand dunes, and other features, and has been traveling and exploring its magnetic field, weather, and subsurface. And there is a third country now exploring the red planet for the first time. The United Arab Emirates, built and operated by Mitsubishi, launched their HOPE probe from Japan, and it arrived into the Mars orbit in February. Unlike the Perseverance and the Tianwen-1, the HOPE probe will not land, but continuously fly in the orbit of Mars, making important observations from a distance, studying seasonal weather cycles and weather events in the lower atmosphere. It is in orbital company with India's Mars orbiter that has been circling the planet since 2014. Their mission is exploring mineralogy, Martian atmosphere, as well as the effects of solar wind and radiation, and providing opportunities to observe the Martian moon, Phobos. So far, Perseverance has found that billions of years ago there were flowing rivers on Mars, and would have been an ideal landscape for ancient microbial life had such life existed. A treacherous dune field lies between the rover and this delta, which is a challenge as it passes a great variety of interesting rocks along the way. The rover's laser-based instrument zaps rocks with a laser to vaporize small portions and study their chemical makeup. So there will be lots to learn about this amazing planet called Mars, which may be someday our future vacation spot in the galaxy.
Well, thank you, NASA Nelly. What I showed you was, of course, extremely scientifically based information about what was found on Mars, at least the rat-bat spider from the film, The Angry Red Planet, which is pretty entertaining, although not at all, not too much science in it, except unless you want to get into the science of entertainment. But let me go just a few more things into God, we missed this on July 17th, so I'm going to go into the moon and to Disneyland, because the moon and Disneyland are two important things. So the grand opening of Disneyland was July 17th, 1955, the Golden Horseshoe, a review show in Frontierland that my parents used to take me to all the time, and I loved it. We sat in the same table upstairs on the left side of the stage every time. It made its debut the day before on July 16th for a private party. We were not that private party. Over 28,000 people visited the park during the grand opening. Food carts ran out of food and many rides broke down. The temperature was 101, and another subject we could talk about is why we're not having such a hot summer. But as soon as I say that, watch it go up to 110. And the cement had not fully set, so visitors' shoes were getting stuck. So that would be neat to have your feet immortalized in Disneyland. There was a gas leak in Fantasyland, which caused much of Adventureland, Frontierland, and Fantasy to close for a few hours. Flames from the leak were seen trying to engulf Sleeping Beauty's castle. I guess that's where they got the idea for the fireworks show. Let me get that where you can hear me a little better. Walt was so busy he didn't learn about the fire till the following day, and only 12 rides were running. Admission was $1 for adults, 50 cents to 75 cents per child. Among the rides that were open in 1955 that still remain today are the Disneyland Railroad, one of my favorites, including the very funky Grand Canyon and Primeval World. Jungle Cruise, which is being revamped now, and The Rock is starring in a new movie about that. King Arthur's Carousel, which is just a walkthrough. Mad Tea Party. Oh, yeah. Mark Twain's Riverboats. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, one of my favorite all-time rides. Peter Pan's Flight, which is everybody's favorite. The lines are always so long. Storybook Land, canal boats. The park was open to the public the following day. Now let's get into the moon. Apollo 11 launched, carrying first men to land on the moon July 16th, 1969. And this is kind of cool. It's a whatever it is.
Ribbon. Button.
It's a button with a ribbon. Anyway, it commemorates that day. We'll get it right back to the moon in a minute. Comet Shoemaker-Levy first collides with the planet Jupiter July 16th and continue through the 22nd. We had our 8-inch reflector, and we had it in the backyard in Irvine, and yes, we could see it. We could see it pretty much happening. We could see the before and the after, and it was great. The telescope now that we have, I got like a big shot, thinking I was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we bought a bigger one, and it's too big for me to carry anymore. So, do we have the picture of Pluto? I love that picture. We got the first picture of Pluto sent by New Horizon probe July 16th, 2015. And I can't tell which way is up anymore. Is this up?
No, it's upside down. There you go.
Oh, now I see it. There you go. Takes me a while. I was born upside down, I guess, so it happens that way. Anyway, is that not a great picture of Pluto or not? But at least it puts together those two items we just talked about, Disneyland and the moon. So Apollo 11 launched, what I said it was, and July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first human to step on the moon, as Michael Collins stayed in orbit around the moon doing experiments and taking photos. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the surface, walked around for 3 hours, also did experiments, and picked up moon rocks. Do you want to show some moon rocks? No. Like I said last week, I think it was, that we call peanut butter filled pretzels moon rocks. So if one of us asks another, do you want a moon rock? That's what we're talking about. I've got a couple of records here to show you. Pretty cool, huh? I mean, I collect all this stuff. So there's the three boys right there, and yeah, let me show some of this stuff. And I should have my amplifier in place by next week, and I'll be able to play these records again. But this record I've had for quite some time, and just want to see what. Yeah, there you go. Pretty nice, huh? Yeah, no, very nice. And oh, that's pretty neat. And there's a picture of it up there. There's a picture of it coming down to planet Earth. You know, when we talked about land, when NASA Nellie was talking about the Land Rover, it reminds me of a story Susan Geffen, that wonderful elder care attorney, who had the great one-liner of if you're alive, you have a future. One of her clients was in her 80s, and she still worked at JPL, and still was able to steer, and was still steering around the rover, one of the rovers at least at the time. Oh, and what do you think, huh? Oh, and on the back, of course, since this is an old one, it's a real one. Where did this go to? Well, this was delivered to Anaheim back then. Anyway, August 8th, 1969. So this is after they got back. And how about a cigarette ad on the back for all to see and love? And here's a really good picture. I like this picture here because, you see the picture of the shoe print in the sand, but you never see the shoe. This has got the shoe.
Really big shoe.
Big shoe. It's a big shoe. And you know how they say that the flag was never flying on the moon, and I don't know why it should. There's no atmosphere per se, but that picture does show it kind of wiggling around, which it would. If anybody knocked into it or shook it around, it would shake like that for a very long time. Now I'm going to show you another record, phonograph record, that we picked up, was it Tuesday or what? Tuesday, I think. Tuesday, yeah. This is brand new, just came out, and of course I couldn't resist it. Take a look at that. And yes, if you want one, you can go get one still. It's just been, and as you know, records are going so fast. Records have never sold this fast in history. They cannot keep up with pressing records. Of course, records do use, for better or worse, they do use, oil products. So it's one of the drawbacks there. And the other is just to do a really good record, it almost has to be done by hand. And that's why some companies only do a few hundred at a time, charge $1,000, and they sell out in a minute, maybe 5 minutes. Modern harmonic supersonic sounds. Alito Mineo conducts, and that's Alito Art Mineo. Music that's truly out of this world. I mean, come on. Is that great? Oh, wait a minute. I got to show you the vinyl, too. And a picture of Art himself right on the label. So eat your heart out, or else go buy one. Or as they say on the record collecting channels, buy now or cry later. So that's that. So with that, I do want to say goodbye. I want to thank everyone for hanging with us. I really want to thank Sean for such great help with all of the... Oh, I got 2 minutes, so I need to thank Sean for 2 minutes. So I guess I can do that because he's worth it. We had a problem at first with me not being able to hear anything he said. We got that taken care of, switching around computers and then switching them back again. And then with Rand, we had some trouble getting him connected, but wasn't he a great speaker? And after that, when we got him back on, we were doing fine when we got him back on. But in the meantime, that time between 3:30 and 4, Sean was fast enough to be able to put in some of last week's show, which was the Golden Years Dr. Arash. And I mean, that's always a good thing to listen to, but it wasn't planned. But at least good information was coming over to you by virtue of Sean being able to do that. And really want to thank you, Sean, for that. And I think you heard me, Sean, when I said, yes, I had problems with Zoom also last week. So, sometimes we want to just blame things on something, even though they don't deserve it. Like I sometimes try to blame things on on Skype, but it wasn't Skype's fault. Who knows whose fault it was? It doesn't really matter. As long as we have somebody like Sean to be able to take up the slack and fix things, which he did. So, you know that we have a bit of a resurgence of the flu, the influenza of COVID-19, 2019 scourge, and we need to be really careful. Unfortunately, I got really used to not wearing a mask, and I really don't want to put it back on again, but I will. My health is more important, and you know, when you do wear a mask, you help other people as well. And people have been asking you, how can you say that? Well, you know, I don't have time to say it, to explain now, but ask your doctor. You know that we got to get out of this one way, one time or another. We got to get out of this, and everybody helping needs to help. So remember to call me, email me, bestloantoday@gmail.com. I got to confess, I was born at a very early age. I'm not crazy about reality, but it's still the only place to get a decent meal. Well, my house too is not bad. Nostalgia is not what it used to be. I love that one. And you never find rainbows if you're looking down. And in the meantime, Kaplan will be here on the same corner in front of the cigar store next week. Please take care of yourself and have a great week. Bye-bye.